I don't think we do enough for mental health in this country. I'm just going to come out and say that. And if we did more to protect people's mental health, maybe we wouldn't have as many of these scenarios that happen in this country. Like, it scares me on the news every day of these stories where we see people like killing groups of people over something that they could have gotten help with. Welcome to episode 283 of Empty the Bench here on the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media for Empty the Bench at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. About 25 subs away from 1,000. Please go over and hit the button. We would really appreciate it. If you can't watch on the video side, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcasts, all audio platforms. You know the deal by now. And Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Very busy on the WNBA side, baseball, and a bunch of other things. Playback.tv/ETB Network. You'll hear a message about that later on in the show. Okay. This is going to be an interesting show this week because this show, has a tendency to change the order of the topics a lot when things happen. But unfortunately, we had quite a big story happen a couple days ago, and it's taking over the trending headlines. If you haven't seen it or you've been under a rock, unfortunately, a gunman in New York City got into the building at 345 Park in the city. That's where NFL HQ is. I think KPMG is in that building. And there's a bunch of stuff in that building. And somehow a gunman got in the building and killed 4 people, including himself. There's a lot of questions we have. So we're going to get into that. Deion Sanders and his cancer battle. And eventually had to get his bladder removed. He had his announcement at his press conference a couple days ago as well, so we'll get into that. Some news that happened along the way. Trey Hendrickson is going to report to Bengals camp. Maybe the Bengals' luck is changing a little. Also, the Raiders with a weird reason for cutting one of their players. And no, I don't think this would be on the bingo card. If you're looking at that card, I just don't think it would be. Luka Doncic looks like he's in incredible shape. We'll talk about that. And then we'll some other stuff, including Bryce Harper and MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred going nose to nose. So there's not as many topics this week, but there are some good ones. So we got a lot to discuss. Anthony, how are we doing?
Not too bad. Definitely excited when the show premieres. NFL season will be officially on our way. The Hall of Fame game will be premiering that night. We'll get the Chargers versus the Lions. But this is one of those shows, Nick, that's just very unfortunate and very tough to do due to the sad breaking news that we got just a few days ago. So obviously we have to talk about it, but man, it's definitely very devastating that these things have to keep happening.
I mean, yeah. And by the way, after this show premieres, it's actually going to be football all the way through February from this day forward. So get ready. It's happy football season for the rest of the way. Unfortunately, we're not going to start with a very happy football story. So a gunman in New York City killed 4 people and then turned the gun and committed suicide on himself. 5 people technically dead. One was a retired New York City police officer, and it was at a Manhattan office building, which is now 345 Park, where the NFL headquarters are located. And this story hits while we were doing a stream the same night on Playback. I'm rushing around because I don't know what to, believe is going on. And then I see pictures, and then we see the large-style assault rifle. It looked like something out of a movie, almost, that he was carrying. He was in like a full, James Bond type suit. Apparently, he came from Vegas and flew right into New York and went right to the building and did all this stuff. I have a lot of questions. I'm sure you have a lot of questions too, but my initial reaction is how is my first reaction. What is your first reaction when you saw this?
Definitely scary times that we live in, Nick, and it seems like these things are just starting to become the norm. These things are happening all over the country, and it just seems like they're becoming more and more common. I know people are always saying stricter gun laws, but at the end of the day, you make stricter gun laws, the bad people are still going to find ways to find guns and get it that way. So all you're doing is really hurting the normal people by not allowing them to be able to protect themselves. And when you look at this, it's like, damn, how did this guy get all the way through there to be able to even pull something like this off? In New York City, which is such a populated area, one of the most populated cities in the United States, security and police officers should be all over the premises. And then for him to be walking around with a gun, I know you mentioned before we started the show, some people thought maybe he was holding an umbrella down, but damn, that was a pretty big gun to have. And it's a really, really tragic story that people had to lose their lives over. And like you said, like how? Where's the security? This is something that should have been prevented. This guy shouldn't even been able to walk through the doors with this assault rifle, let alone be able to pull this off. So it's very, very sad. And it looks like he was targeting the NFL. He was a former football player. He did not play in the NFL, but he had a good high school career, a good college career. I think he may have even played a little bit of semi-pro. And some people are speculating maybe he had CTE. And he obviously just wanted to target the NFL for, just how physical football is and how bad it is on people's health. He also had in a suicide note that he wanted his brain to be studied for things like CTE. But damn, Nick, it's sad, and this is something that probably should have been prevented.
So there's a lot of technicalities. I had to do a lot of research on this just to make sure we don't screw up portions of the story, because these are tough stories to do and to really break down from an analysis standpoint. Here's the scary part. So he intended to target the league's headquarters, which is on the, I think it was on like the 33rd floor of that office building at 345 Park. But he took the wrong elevator shaft when he went in. So think about that for a second, that if he went up on the right elevator, he might have taken out more people from the NFL. But let me be very clear about something, because we're going to get to a certain idiot on social media who is kind of saying what I was saying, but I don't mean it that way, is it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's the NFL HQ. It doesn't matter if it's KPMG. It doesn't matter if it's any other business. We have serious safety issues in this country, including New York, where New York City is supposed to be one of the safest cities in the country. Our police force is supposed to be number one in this country. And we're getting all these issues happening in the city. Like, that's a massive issue. I worked in the city for 4 years, and I was so worried looking behind my back 5,000 times to make sure I was safe walking around in the city. And there were times when I didn't feel safe walking around in the city. I mean, so how he got in the building, number one, like you said, with that huge assault rifle, which was like the size of a yardstick. I don't know how he got into the building with it. I'm not going to say his name because he doesn't deserve to have the attention for himself, or no one should mention his name. So he was a Las Vegas casino worker. And like you said, he was carrying the handwritten note in his wallet that claimed he suffered from chronic traumatic, and I'm going to get that word wrong, encephalopathy, which is CTE, and accused the league of hiding the dangers of brain injuries linked to contact sports. Now, let's be clear. Does the NFL have a CTE issue and that type of issues? Yes, but that does not mean that you go out there and you attack people and you go kill people. That doesn't mean one leads to the other.
Yeah, and it's like, what was he trying to gain? Like, what was his end game? Like, obviously doing what he did is not helping it, and you're killing innocent people who had nothing to do with you getting CTE. I mean, at the end of the day, he's the one that technically chose to play football, and when you choose to play football, it comes with risk that, is your responsibility. It's not like no one forced them to play the game. No one forced them to get these head injuries. It's just it comes with the nature of the game. If that was the case, she should have played a different sport if she was so worried about it. And to take it out on innocent people to prove a point that you're not proving and not helping the situation at all. I mean, you could have tried to run a fundraiser. You could have raised awareness. You could have done this in a much more positive way. Instead, this became a trend of just, we see this all over the country. People try to get their message across by just mass killing people. And it's not really helping any issues out. It's just hurting innocent people that had nothing to do with the problems. So I don't understand it.
So it says he played high school football in California a decade ago, but never played in the NFL, had a history of mental illness. In the 3-page note found on his body, he accused the NFL of concealing the dangers to players' brains for profit. The degenerative brain disease has been linked to concussions and other repeated head trauma, which we've heard over the years in contact sports such as football. In the note, it was repeatedly said that he was sorry and asked that his brain be studied for CTE. He mentioned a PBS Frontline documentary about the disease. I'm sure you remember that they did a documentary on the CTE situation. I remember when that documentary came out. It also referenced former NFL player Terry Long, who was diagnosed with CTE, and the manner in which Long killed himself in 2005. I get it. If he had issues, I totally understand. But go get help. Don't make the issue worse. Now, I understand that CTE kind of does uncontrollable things to the brain, and the pain is so bad, or the mental clarity of it is so bad that sometimes you can't control the actions that come out. But don't kill people. Like, seriously, don't kill people. Like, go get help. That's the answer.
Yeah, he didn't do this in a very positive way. And yeah, we know the effects of CT. I mean, unfortunately, we've seen stories of like Hall of Fame linebacker Junior Seau, who took his own life. And a lot of people think that had to do with CT. A lot of the mistakes that Aaron Hernandez made, a lot of people said that had to do with CT. And I understand that CT could, ultimately affect your decision making. But when it comes to killing and taking out an innocent life, I mean, there's no, answer for that and no reason for that. And yeah, you may make wrong decisions, but there's got to be something in your brain that at least tells you that killing an innocent person is not the right thing to do.
So Roger Goodell, who works out of the office now, I have no idea if Roger was in New York when this situation happened, but it says he called the shooting, quote, an unspeakable act of violence in our building, saying he was deeply grateful to the law enforcement officers who responded and to the one who gave his life to protect others. Like I said, one of the ones that unfortunately passed away was an off-duty police officer who happened to be there. I don't know whether he was helping to protect or he just happened to be in the crossfires, unfortunately. But it's just a scary situation. I don't know if you remember that there was another high-profile shooting not too far away from there. Do you remember the United Healthcare CEO who got shot down also? He was killed last December by a man who prosecutors say he was angry over corporate greed. But the two similarities in this situation is mental health. And I don't think we do enough for mental health in this country. I'm just going to come out and say that. And if we did more to protect people's mental health, maybe we wouldn't have as many of these scenarios that happen in this country. Like, it scares me on the news every day of these stories where we see people like killing groups of people over something that they could have gotten help with or been more constructive to help themselves. And I don't know how we fix the situation. The NFL has to take some blame, not for this. I'm talking about for the CTE situation that we have and not doing enough to protect these players who smash their heads in nonstop. And you could say the same thing about high school and college. Like, we don't do enough to protect these players from these issues. But you still have to be accountable for the actions that you do. If you're not going to be accountable for your actions, and by the way, this guy is a coward because he turned the gun on himself after he went after and killed everybody. So I have no sympathy for this guy whatsoever because it's almost like he had that planned, that he was going to turn the gun on himself afterwards.
Yeah, he had to. That's probably why the note was already made prior. He probably had this, all figured out. And, obviously when you do a crime like this, obviously you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail. Depending on what state you're doing in, you could get the death penalty. But most people don't want to go through that, the legal proceedings and spend the rest of your life in jail, potentially getting beat up by other inmates. Obviously, he would be targeted. You may have, police officers inside the prisons that may be targeting him, giving him, a bad, lifestyle in prison. But like you said, at the end of the day, there's no remorse. He is a coward, and there's much better ways to do it. And you made a good point, Nick. We do need to do more, and the NFL could do more with their players in terms of mental health. And, I'm not saying this, as a man because I'm a man, but I feel like when it comes to men, men's mental health is probably the one that's pushed to the side a lot more than women's mental health. Women do a lot better of, handling their stress and trying to get good mental health. I feel like as men, we're growing up to just, keep it inside, be a man about it and just let it go. And I feel like when you get so much anger built up, some people just, just collapse and just release it. And I think that we can't just have people exploding like this and not being able to have all that stuff on all the anger built up. I think we need to do stuff for mental health. I know there's that mental health awareness month, but we got to do a lot more in terms of men's mental health. And like you said, the NFL's got to do a lot more. When these players are going out there, you want them to play more games. You want them to have shorter durations in between games played on Sunday and Thursday. Well, then give them more stuff for, to help with the CT, help with the headaches, and help with mental health.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. But the off-duty police officer, his wife is pregnant. He's got 2 young kids at home. No one needs to go through that. No one. And a wife no longer has her husband anymore because of a deranged maniac who decided to go shoot up a building. I mean, I'm reading some of the actions. So it says he took an elevator to the 33rd floor office of the company, shot and killed someone there before fatally shooting himself. It also says that he went up to the floor where the ownership of the building was, killed a real estate executive, killed a security officer. I mean, this guy had a motive going in. He knew that he was going in, he was looking for the NFL HQ, he was going to take it out on them. Oh, it's their fault that my career was a failure. No, dude, your career was a failure because you didn't get where you wanted to get. You probably didn't put the work in to get where you wanted to get. Supposedly, he was a really good high school football player. Sometimes, and you would know this better than me from following the game from high school up, it's not always the circumstances, or it's not, let me take it back. It's not always the level of play you have. Sometimes it's the circumstances that you don't get to the high levels of the NFL.
Yeah, you got injuries, financial issues. Some kids can't afford to go to, to a top college. If they didn't get a nice scholarship or didn't have the grades, sometimes they got to go right from high school to working a full-time job, or they got to go to college and work a full-time job, and trying to balance the both is really, really tough. So like you said, the circumstances do matter. And, and when it comes to these situations, you got to look at this. It's not just 4 people that got killed. There's more than those people that lose their lives, not literally, but all these families, their lives are basically over as well, because how are these wives and children supposed to move on? Their lives are never, ever going to be the same. They're going to have a loved one that they're never going to be able to see again. And mentally and emotionally, they're never going to be able to go get over that. And they're going to be changed people as well. So it's not just that you killed 4 people. You ruined 4 people on top of ruin all those loved ones that are involved with these people in that. So it's just a shame.
And one of the other lines, it says he had, quote, a documented mental health history. So how are these people getting on the street? If he had a documented mental health history, why is he out on the street? Number one. And by the way, that's no offense. I'm not going after people who have mental health. I'm just pointing out that if he has, excuse me, a documented, air quote, mental health history, shouldn't he be in a mental health facility or somewhere where he can be monitored? Because you don't know what he's going to do if he's out on the street. I mean, I'm like lost in that regard. I mean, like some of this other stuff I'm reading, NFL employees were told to shelter in place. The NFL offices are on the floors 5 through 8 of the 44-story building. 4 others sustained minor injuries while attempting to flee. I did see a video where the ones who managed to avoid had to run out of the building as the police were waiting. They literally had to close that street because they had no idea where this situation was going on. Like, there were so many lights, it was lit up like a Christmas tree on that block. So, I don't know. Like, I mean, you can't blame the NFL for this because they're more an innocent victim than a person to blame. But it's tough. It's a tough story. And if I'm an NFL employee, would I want to go back and work in that building? Hell no, I don't want to go back and work in that building. I mean, I know Rodgers said in a statement afterwards, like, well, if you all want to work remotely, you can't. What does that have to do with this situation? Like, okay, so the people who are alive, they get to work. What about the people who aren't? What about the families, like you just said, they're being affected and don't have a mother or a father or whatever you want to say at this point? But CTE is a massive problem. Mental health is a massive problem. We need to do something to fix this so we don't have more of these situations. Not that it's a direct comparison, but look at all the school shootings we're having in this country and how young kids or people who are just graduating are going back to their schools and causing massive shoot-ups, killing people. This is not an NFL issue anymore or a sports issue anymore. This is a mental health epidemic we're having in this country that we're not doing enough to protect people who need help.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, stories, they say high school kids now have the same anxiety levels as people back in the 60s that were fighting the Vietnam Wars. I mean, it just goes to show you, I'm not sure if it's a social media thing or just, society that we live in, but, just kids now and just each generation, this mental health is going way, way down. And it doesn't seem like there's any support. When someone says, oh, I got a mental health issue, people just kind of get scared away from it, don't want to get help. They're like, oh, don't come near me, or, oh, you're something wrong with it. You're not normal, when, people with mental health is starting to become the normal. So why not treat it that way and get the people the help? And it sucks when you got people like Skip Bayless out there who are so insensitive. You already see how insensitive he was about the Damar Hamlin thing. And then he goes out and make a tweets like that saying, oh, thank God he went to the wrong floor. Basically saying, oh, thank God nobody from the NFL headquarters was hurt. It's like, why does it make a difference? It doesn't matter who died. It's basically like saying, oh, thank God, the regular people got killed and not the NFL headquarters. Their lives matter just as much as everybody else's. So I thought that was very insensitive.
Well, I have the tweet, so just for contextual sake, but thank God the New York City shooter apparently took the wrong bank of elevators and didn't make it to the NFL floors. He reportedly bizarrely blamed the NFL for what he believed to be his CTE suffered from playing high school football. Come on, man. You got to know the way that sounds. Like, you're basically saying, oh, they didn't attack the NFL. Okay, good. They went after other people. So you're telling me that other people's lives who were lost is not as superior as the NFL? I mean, can you... and like you just said, the Damar Hamlin tweet, which broke a record for numbers on Twitter, by the way, because he basically blew up the platform with what he wrote about Damar Hamlin, saying that he should have just gotten up and played. Like, people are writing, like, did he get hacked? And I'm like, this is not a hack. This is definitely not a hack. This is who Skip Bayless is as a human being. He doesn't care. I feel like sometimes he writes things knowing it's going to cause a reaction from people.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I feel like some of his takes when he was on television probably really weren't his actual opinions. He was just trying to get a rise and views. I mean, I guess it worked for a while because he was able to benefit from it and get great jobs in the sports world and make millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, you got to know what you're tweeting out there, and you got to have some sort of morality and some sort of sensitivity to these issues.
This tweet, currently as we're recording, has been seen 3 million times. 3 million times. And if I remember correctly on the Damar Hamlin one, that one was seen like 250 million times. I mean, have you ever heard of as a public figure that you have to be very careful with a platform that you're on? Because if you send out one wrong message, that leads to issues in other places and other people, because people look at influencers and public figures and they say, I want to do stuff like they do. I would hope people don't say that about Skip Bayless, but it's just insensitive. Like, dude, put your sports takes aside for one day and just realize that 4 people lost their lives, because I don't count the shooter because he's an idiot. But my point is, 4 innocent lives, including a New York City police officer, lost their lives. Give it a rest with the takes. It's enough. Like, to be honest, like, I hope people look at that tweet and say, this is the poster child for asshole in sports media, and never to hire him again. Because these are the issues that this man causes. He doesn't care whether it's sensitive, insensitive, if it's hurting someone, if it's a mental health situation, or God forbid, a death situation with an NFL player. He's just going to put things out there and say, oh, I hope I get all those impressions that I want.
No, 100%. I mean, someone as me who loves football and loves sports, I understand there's some things that, come ahead of sports, especially people's lives. Especially with the Damar Hamlin situation and this situation where people were brutally murdered. There's some things that are more important than the actual sports that's going on. I feel like Skip Bayless, his world is so wrapped around sports. I think he has a hard time separating the two. And this is probably why there's stories about why he never had kids, because he just wanted to be so enveloped in his career. And that's just the guy Skip Bayless is. It seems like sports is first, and even including people's lives all play a second place to it.
I kind of feel bad for his wife a little bit too, because she has to deal with this aftermath also when he says these dumb things. Because I guarantee you, in her own head, she's like, shit, what the hell did he do now? Like now I got to deal with all the backlash because he said something stupid about this.
Well, you know what they say, bad company corrupts good character.
That's a good point. That's actually a really good point. But condolences to the people who lost their lives. It's an unfortunate day. I'm sure the NFL will pick up the pieces. I did read, one last thing I'll say about this is Roger Goodell, who came out and said that there is going to basically be a barrier around that building very soon. So it probably went from being the most unsafe building to probably it's going to be one of the safest buildings in New York City. But why do we have to wait for attacks to get proper security involved so that these things don't happen? Think about it.
These things should already be put in place.
I mean, not that I really want to make this comparison, but when 9/11 happened and we had all those issues in the airport, we didn't have the proper amount of security measures at the time. Our airport security was lax in the country. Now you look at our airport security since that happened, you literally have to go through 5 security measures just to get through on an airplane. But why did it take one attack to finally change that? Why can't we live in a react first society where we put measures in place so that these things don't happen?
Probably because these things cost money. And a lot of times these people don't want to put up money until they're pushed into a place where they have to. And it's unfortunate that something like this always have to occur and lives have to be lost for these measures to be implemented. And, Nick, I already thought, just the fact that this guy was able to walk in with a gun, even someone who didn't have a gun, someone just like me or you, I didn't think that would be a building. We could just walk in up and be like, oh, okay, we're going to go to the 33rd floor and see the NFL headquarters. I thought that there'd be security guards or a PIN code or something you got to scan or show credentials before you even walk into the building.
When I worked at my last radio job, both buildings, the old one and the new one, I literally had to use my ID badge because it was one of those turnstiles where you put it in and then the doors slide open. You need a badge to get up into the elevator bank to get up. So what scares me about this situation is he got into the elevator bank without an ID verification in the building.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So that might be a full building issue because, like I said, there's other companies and a company that owns the building. So that might be a company issue and a liability issue with whoever owns the building. But that's scary. And again, it doesn't matter who it is, but at the same time, because everyone is focusing on the story that, oh, he went up the wrong elevator bank. Who gives a shit if he went up the wrong elevator bank? He still killed people.
Yeah, and hopefully this is a wake-up call to everybody else. I mean, even just not this building, but hopefully any building that doesn't have these key codes or badge codes that you need to scan to get in, hopefully they implement this, and every corporate or federal building should have these.
It's an unfortunate situation. I'm sure we're going to find out more from it in the coming days and weeks, but it's just another unfortunate situation we kind of live in this world. Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. Let's talk about another sad but successful situation that they were able to fix. Deion Sanders came out in a press conference a couple days ago and said that he battled and beat bladder cancer and had his bladder removed. He had his full press conference. I thought originally he was going to announce that he was retiring from coaching. That's what I thought he was going to do because he already, if I'm not mistaken, didn't it have a few toes removed also as well? So he has problems walking. Now he's got the bladder removed. I thought he wasn't going to be able to coach. And then we find out that they're going to put a porta potty on the sidelines. And I think you and I were discussing this. He made a joke about that he's going to have to depend on Depends. And were you the one who shared it with me that he got a sponsor with Depends? Or
no, that may have meant somebody else.
Oh, it was Callan. Callan shared it with me that he announced a sponsor with Depends after that joke. I don't know if you really want to call it a joke, but I guess we could say that he's lucky to be alive in this situation, right?
Yeah, that's my main point. Is thank God that he was able to recover from this and not only just continue coaching, but most importantly, be able to live his life and be able to spend time with his loved ones and family. Deion Sanders, yeah, he's been out for retired for a while, but in relative life years, he's still a young guy. I mean, if he were to pass away, that would be a very young, premature death. I mean, he's in his 50s, so typically people are living to late 70s, early 80s, and guys who are athletes who do take care of their bodies live into their 80s. So a guy like Deion Sanders should have 20 to 30 plus years of life left. And like you said, he's been dealing with multiple health issues. He had a couple toes removed, so he had a tough time walking. He was able to get past that. It goes to show you, the strength that this guy has. Deion Sanders, as great as a football player he was, a guy who never gave up. It just goes to show you in his life endeavors, he just continues to fight and doesn't give up and continues to have a positive attitude. I know there was some health issues going on that they were reporting on earlier a couple months ago, that he had to step away from facilities to take care of some health issues, but we never knew exactly what it was. I thought maybe it was a foot thing again or just something minor, but to find out that he had full-on bladder cancer was very, very scary. Thank God he was able to beat it. And, I just hope my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family that he continues to get positive news and that he doesn't get any more sickness or any more cancers.
He did talk about, without having a bladder, that it's going to cause some bathroom issues, and that's why they're putting the porta potty on the sidelines, because it's the only way he'll be able to coach and survive during the games. He did talk about that he lost about 25 pounds, which is a lot of weight to lose. He said this is not an easy task. It was dynamic. It was tough. It wasn't a cakewalk. It wasn't easy. That was a fight, but we made it. Let's see. And then like a bunch of the doctors were at his press conference. But I don't know. Like forget again, like the last situation, the football is not part of this story. This is trying to beat cancer. Cancer is a beast. And unfortunately, they say cancer is undefeated because eventually it unfortunately gets to you because once you get it, it's hard to avoid it. As many times as you beat it, it comes back. But it's a battle. People fight this battle to get through it and to survive and be there for their family. As much as we give the Sanders family a lot of shit for the way they act on the field, no one wishes cancer on anybody at all. I don't care if it's my worst enemy, someone I hate, a stranger, whatever. You don't wish cancer on anybody. I don't know. Is there anything else you could add to this, or what else you thought about this? Or
Well, yeah, we pretty much summed it up. Like I said, just goes to show you the strength and resilience that Deion Sanders shows. And I know he's a very religious guy. He's always thanking God for everything that he gets. And like he tweeted out perfectly, God is the greatest. God was able to help him. It probably gave him the courage and the mindset to be able to beat this thing. And like I said, the only thing we can hope and pray is that Deion Sanders is able to live a full life. You know, hopefully he lives to 70, 80 like a normal person his age. And hopefully if he doesn't get this again, and even if he does, hopefully he continues to fight the good fight and he's able to keep on beating. And like I said, I just hope the best for him and his family.
yeah, I mean, hopefully everything goes well. Fingers crossed. And yeah, we'll see how Colorado does this season. Maybe that'll be a motivator for them this year to play well. I saw that they got some huge recruits on their team. Everyone was talking about Julian Lewis as well as being a big 5-star recruit. So hopefully they can use that as a motivator to really play well. Now going on the football field, the NFL field, this kind of broke as right before we recorded. Trey Hendrickson plans to report to Bengals camp, ending holdout without being closer to a deal. Reporting stops the $50,000 per day fine and serves as good faith to jumpstart negotiations. I'll let you attack this one first because this is right up your alley.
Yeah, I guess everything's been going the Bengals way over last week. I mean, it looked like all hope was lost when training camp was just getting started. And not only did they not have Trey Hendrickson there, but they also didn't have their first-round pick, Shamar Stewart. And we were like, damn, well, your only good defensive player from last year on a very, very poor defense, one of the worst in the league, is now not there. The guy you drafted to be his co-partner / potential replacement is also not there. And both of them are dealing with because of contract situations. And this is a team that went out and dished so much money to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But, hey, they were able to get Shamar Stewart in for a contract, so now he's practicing at training camp. And now you get Trey Hendrickson in. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson's there without a new deal, so he still didn't get what he was desiring. But it definitely is good news for Bengals fans because if these two guys are on the same field with each other, and Shamar Stewart, with the talent he has, if the Bengals defensive coordinator, who's a new defensive coordinator, can get him to tap into that potential, I mean, you're looking at two guys that could wreak havoc on the quarterback. And with as many points as Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase and Chase Brown will be able to put up on offense, if those two guys could just wreak havoc, that could be a good enough defense to at least get them back to the playoffs. Maybe not compete with the top teams like Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, but at least get them into the dance, something that they haven't been to in the last 2 years. I do think they keep saying, Joe Burrow's been saying, I mean, he was right about the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase deal getting done. He says he does think that there's some way that the Trey Hendrickson deal does get done. But like I said to Grant on Football Forecast, with guys like T.J. Watt getting $41 million, Myles Garrett getting 40, guys like Max Crosby getting 35, 36, Trey Hendrickson's going to be right in there. Maybe not 40, 41, but somewhere in between that 35 to 40. And when you add up him, Burrow, and T. Higgins and Chase's contract, you're paying $160 million to 4 players. And it's not basketball. So, instead of having to pay 15 guys, you got to pay 53. And, a couple guys, yeah, they can make a difference, but not as much of the difference as they do in basketball. You need an entire team to really be able to compete and go on a deep runs, especially when it's as physical the league is. You're going to have injuries. And if any one of these 4 guys get hurt, this could be devastating. But for right now, this is really good news for the Bengals, and we shall see if he does get a contract. But either way, they'll be able to get Trey Hendrickson back on the field, maybe him getting that $50,000 fine per day. I mean, that starts to add up, and at some point, you go into a negative, and you're not making any money. So maybe think at the very least, I play out my contract, and then some other team will pay me next year, and at least the Bengals will get one more year out of the reigning sack leader.
The thing that worries about me in this statement is when they say, him coming back is to serve as good faith in contract negotiations. I hate when that terminology is used because a lot of times teams will take advantage of their players coming back on the field after they were holding out. One thing I would also look at also, and this, you might not agree with this next statement I'm about to make, but I actually think Trey Hendrickson brings more value to the Bengals than TJ Watt brings to the Steelers, in my opinion. Because if they don't have Trey Hendrickson, that team does not run at all. Just you have Joe Burrow, that's great. Don't get me wrong. And you have a bunch of offensive pieces. But we saw what happened to the Bengals the last couple of years when it came to all offense and no defense. They were playing 60 to 70 point offensive games, and they were losing because they didn't have defense to stop teams down the stretch. I think technically, and I'm not saying it would ever happen, the Steelers could technically play without TJ Watt and still survive defensively. I'm not saying they should. He's one of the best at pass rusher position, but they would survive a lot longer than the Bengals would without Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah, Nick, and honestly, I may agree with you. I mean, and 2 things can be true. Yeah, TJ Watt could be considered and perceived, in my opinion, most people's opinion, as the better player than Trey Hendrickson. I do think TJ Watt brings more to the table. He can cover, he can stop the run and rush the pass rusher. But also one thing that could be true is Trey Hendrickson is more valuable because he has less help around him. If you lose TJ Watt, you still got Alex Highsmith on the other side. You still got a guy like Cam Hayward in the middle. They got a great secondary as well. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have an overall great defense where the Bengals have one good guy they can rely on. So, yeah, TJ Watt's the better player, but Trey Hendrickson does mean more to the Bengals defense than TJ Watt does to his defense.
Well, right. I think you and I are on that same page where if the Bengals, like if Trey Hendrickson was just going to sit out and they were never going to agree to a deal, they would have been screwed, like 100%. Because you would know this better than me, who's the lead defensive guy if Hendrickson's not there?
Well, it would have to be probably their rookie. I mean, they don't really have much other edge rushers, so they would have to rely on a first-round pick rookie who didn't have much sack production in college. He didn't put up a lot of great numbers, but he blew up at the combine. So you're talking about a guy that you would have to rely on as your top pass rusher. You got a bunch of other guys like Joseph Asai and Miles Murphy who are still kind of like unproven guys who haven't proved to be 10 sack plus guys. So, yeah, they got some good young players in the secondary that are still, like Cam Taylor, Bray, and others. But, man, if you don't have Trey Hendrickson, you got nothing. I mean, you're talking about an offense that was putting up 30 points last year and couldn't make the playoffs with Trey Hendrickson. Now you take Trey Hendrickson off the board, Burrow's going to have to put up 40, 50 points a game, and that's just not going to happen.
Right. That's why I'm saying, like, TJ Watt will always be – he is the best pass rusher at his position. It's not a question. But like you said, having a Cam Hayward and a few other guys in Pittsburgh, they would survive. It's all about survival in the NFL. If things happen, Pittsburgh has always been known for being a defensive team. Always have, always will. That is the Mike Tomlin playbook, so to speak, to be more defense than offense. Always have been, except for when they had Ben Roethlisberger, who was an offensive quarterback. But I think that Trey Hendrickson is a big deal. Getting him back in now, will he be in shape and ready to play? That's going to be the big thing, because when you get holdouts, then it delays everything you're supposed to do to get ready for the season. Now, he didn't really miss any time, though, because the preseason just started, right? So I don't even know. Did he get fined for not showing up to camp? According to this, he was getting fined $50,000 per day. But I didn't realize that training camp started.
Once training camp starts, that's when the fines will start. Once training camp opens and all the veterans are supposed to be there, it's your obligation to show up. It's in their contract. So yeah, he was getting fined up until now. Maybe they'll bring him along slow. Maybe don't play him at all in the preseason. But like you said, you got to be careful. Sometimes you see guys like this get like a minor hamstring injury from trying to rush it back. But hopefully the Bengals don't do that. But Trey Hendrickson is a veteran. I think he knows what he's doing. And I think he'll be ready for week 1.
I hope so. Because, again, and you and I might differ on this, I'm still not high on the Bengals right now still. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised because I went through and analyzed their schedule already, and I have them as an under 500 finisher again this year, which I'm sure a lot of people don't. But I'll save that for when we do the previews. All right. Now, from all the serious stories to an odd story. So, the Raiders cut Christian Wilkins. There's some conflicting reports on what the actual situation is. Mike Florio, who I will tell you right off the bat, I do not like at all. Even though he does decent reporting, I just don't like the way he goes about stuff. But the actual story that came out was that the reason he got cut, or in technical terms, he had his contract voided for $35.2 million or whatever was left, was because he kissed the teammate on the head. And the teammate complained, and they said it was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like a violation of the rehab, they were saying.
Yeah, there was like you said, there's a lot of reports with going in this, and I know Christian Wilkins was one of the best defensive tackles playing for the Miami Dolphins, and he was a big ticket free agent for the Raiders. They brought him in to finally take some pressure off Max Crosby, get the Raiders defense some interior pressure so that Max Crosby can maybe get some more help so he's not taking the double triple teams every single time. And then Christian Wilkins' first year with the team gets a really devastating lower leg injury. And obviously, given his age and given his playing style, he was a guy who really had to go through extensive rehab. And I've read reports that he wasn't taking his rehab seriously. He was kind of joking around, dancing and doing some other things that he really shouldn't have been doing, and not putting his best foot forward to try to come back. And, if you think about it on the team's perspective, you're paying this guy a bunch of money, and these contracts and guaranteed money are injury protected. But if the guy's not doing the best he can to come back in the field, that's doing a disservice to the team and why you should be paying him a bunch of money. And then when you read the other reports about how, he was kissing a teammate on the forehead and made the teammate feel uncomfortable, it just goes to show you, he wasn't the best locker room guy as well. And there was just a lot of issues. And it doesn't seem like it was just one thing. It seems like it was a few different things. And it would have to be when you take your guy you spent so much money on, a guy that, you were hoping so much and had so many aspirations, to cut just after one season. There had to be about 3 or 4 things that, had to conflict with each other to ultimately lead to this cut. It's unfortunate for the Raiders. They'll have some probably dead money due to this as well, but it's unfortunate.
I mean, if that's the only reason why you're cutting somebody, I don't know if you could legally get away with cutting someone and voiding their contract over that. But let me be clear too. You don't want to make people uncomfortable when you're around in a sporting situation or a professional sports situation. Ryan McFadden, who covers the Raiders for ESPN, asked Raiders coach Pete Carroll about the incident between Christian Wilkins and the teammate. And the response was, quote, "I have no comment to make. We made a decision on what we're doing, and we're moving with it. We'll see how that unveils itself in time." Which is basically a cop-out for we're not telling you why we made the decision to cut him. When Adam Schefter put that out, that's when Mike Florio went after Adam Schefter, saying that it sounds like it was a little bit of headline grabbing rather than if the story was actually true. But I guess the one thing I'll say also, if it was a rehab violation, he was fooling around, that's a safety issue for the team and a financial issue for a team. So if they did it for that reason, I would understand. But you're telling me you couldn't work it out if another situation, which maybe you just say, all right, you go over here, and we'll leave you two guys away from each other. I don't know. First of all, what do you think is true, and what would you have done?
Yeah, I think this is probably stemming from the fact that they didn't think this guy probably would ever be the same player post-injury, and they probably thought that he was taking advantage of the fact that he had the contract and that he was not going to take his rehab seriously. And I think maybe it was something minor, maybe it was the kiss, or maybe something else. And ultimately, 2 or 3 strikes, you're out, and you got a new coach in Pete Carroll who's trying to rebuild the culture and establish a winning culture and a winning mindset with the Raiders. And maybe this is just the type of guy that he doesn't want the locker room messing up the other young guys when he's trying to build this new culture. So that's what I take away from this.
Yeah, so like I said, Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, and Adam Schefter, obviously the top insider for ESPN, going back and forth because Florio is basically challenging Schefter. Now, that's a tough thing to do, to challenge Adam Schefter, by the way, because what would you say? He's right 99.9% of the time when he puts reports out, and Florio's trying to say that's not the story that's going around in ecosystems. And Schefter went on the McAfee show and suggested that this is the incident that everyone's been tiptoeing around. So I don't know what to believe. I'm kind of like jury out on this situation because I don't know what's real. If this was as simple of a situation as, oh, I was playfully joking around and my teammate was taking it a little too sensitively, that could have been worked out, I feel like. Like I said, if it's a rehab violation and you could seriously injure yourself, then cut him, because then he's doing the wrong thing. So, I don't know. Moving on to more athletes and body stuff. Luka Doncic. By the way, this guy looks like he's in incredible shape now. And he put the quote out, my whole body looks better. It does look better. It looked like he totally rededicated himself to sports and getting in shape and being ready to play with the Lakers. A lot of Mavs fans are upset that he's now finally getting himself in shape and caring about basketball. Even though the way I look at it is they chose to make a trade. They traded him to LA, and that should have been it. The door should have been slammed shut. As soon as he was outside the door of the organization and in the Lakers uniform, it shouldn't matter what he does in the Lakers uniform anymore at that point. So I think people are overreacting a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly, Nick, I think Luka Doncic leaving Dallas is probably the best thing for Dallas and probably the best thing for the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, when you look at Luka Doncic, with the body that he already had and what he was doing with his health, you're talking about a guy that was one of the premier players in the league. He was an MVP candidate every year. He got this team to the finals. He got them to multiple Western Conference finals. So, if you think about it as a person, you're like, okay, well, I'm a top 5 player in the world. I'm an MVP candidate. I'm one of the brightest young stars. I'm getting my team to the finals. I don't have to do anything. But then when you get traded to the Lakers, that's not the standard. The standard is championships or bust. And knowing that you're going to be the next face of the Lakers post LeBron, falling in the footsteps of guys like Kobe, Magic, LeBron, and Kareem, there's more pressure on you than so was in Dallas, where you're just following the footsteps of Dirk Nowitzki, who was a great player that got them one championship. So the standards definitely change. And the fact that he was traded from Dallas, a city that he definitely loved and wanted to be a part of and retire with, I think that just light a fire under Luka Doncic and said, hey, this is my motivation. This was my thing, my coming to Jesus moment of, hey, I got to make a change. If I want to have the best career I could possibly, this is what I need to do. And now he's also in the same organization as LeBron James, who probably takes care of his body better than any other athlete we ever seen. So I think that's starting to rub off him as well. And now you got the Mavericks, who got all these good young players with Anthony Davis. They won the lottery with Cooper Flag, so they're going to be a competitive team. Now, if you get Luka Doncic, who's going to be in the best shape of his career, and Luka Doncic that maybe can play some defense now that he'll have this the endurance to be able to play both ways with LeBron James, bringing in DeAndre and some other players. This is a team that, obviously Luka Doncic probably also realized you maybe got 1 to 2 years with LeBron, Why not try to maximize it, try to win a title with LeBron before he retires, and then also be able to carry the torch afterwards? So I'm glad for Luka. I think Luka maybe see an MVP season, and Luka finally might get that MVP this year. And I'm happy for him. And I think Luka Doncic getting traded was the best thing for Dallas and LA.
Also, he's doing himself a service now because I think he's a free agent after this upcoming season, and we're talking about a $400 million contract, possibly now being in LA. Lucas said he took a huge step in improving his health, conditioning this summer, adding that his whole body looks better after spending the past 2 months in Croatia training. It says in the Men's Health journal where this was published, includes multiple photos of significant thinner Doncic. Men's Health magazine detailed that the Lakers stars off-season diet and fitness regimen. Now, listen to this, because if you remember, we used to see him back that he would eat everything. He would drink alcohol and beer. If you remember, I think it was in the playoffs, one of the veteran retired players had to grab the beer out of his hand when he was in the locker room celebrating, because he's like, this is not how you celebrate. So it says Doncic and his team told Men's Health that he has stuck to a gluten-free, low-sugar diet that includes intermittent fasting and high levels of protein at 250 grams per day. I mean, that'll do it for you right off the bat. If you're going to change the diet and really, you can tell that he's making an effort to want to play. Like you said, and I think you were reading my mind too, I think he's going to have an MVP caliber season. As long as he stays healthy and he doesn't have another injury like he did in the past. This guy is in unbelievable physical shape all of a sudden. It looks like he lost the beer gut that he had. He also said, just visually, I would say my whole body looks better. Because if you remember, he faced criticism for weight and conditioning issues over the last couple of years. Now, if they're going to make a run, it's going to be because of Luka, not because of LeBron. LeBron has all the mileage. LeBron can do all the stuff to get the team to average status, make the playoffs. Luka is going to be the driver in this situation to make them win a round or two. Even though I still don't think they're good enough to win a title by any means. But I think a success would be making a second round for the Lakers this upcoming season. And maybe that will entice Luka to sign long-term with the Lakers and build something there once LeBron is gone. And they can attract other free agents to play with Luka down the line. So I got to give him credit because for many years, he just didn't want to put the work in.
Yeah, and I think that's why when we saw him play, yeah, he was doing everything he can and using all his energy on the offensive game. But then on defense, he was just letting guys blow by him because he just didn't have the endurance or the physical attributes or the conditioning to play both ways. And I think what's scary for the rest of the NBA is, I mean, if you're talking about a guy who wasn't taking care of his body, but yeah, was still able to go on the court with the best players in the world and drop 28 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, what is he going to do now? Are we talking about a guy now that's going to average 30-plus points a game while also being able to play defense? And, I mean, if you look at him and LeBron, yeah, LeBron can't give it to you every single night like he used to. But, 90 to 80% of the time, LeBron James can still be prime LeBron James. And if you got Luka taking the pressure off him and keeping LeBron fresh, and then you get into the playoffs, I mean, that's going to be one of, if not the best duos. I mean, if Luka Doncic is healthy Luka Doncic, he could be in the conversation for the best player in the world. And LeBron James is still a top 10 player in the world. So not too many teams are going to be able to have a duo that's going to be able to beat that. Now, when it comes to depth, there's probably going to be other teams that are going to be able to beat them. But with just those two guys, them two guys alone could take them pretty far.
I mean, maybe he'll actually be able to play some defense, that he's in much better shape, because that was always the knock on him too. So
and he's got the size and length to be a good defender.
That exactly right. I think that's exactly right. Where because he had the weight issues and he had all those stamina issues, he basically pulled the James Harden and played one side of the ball most of the time. So this is a big factor, and hopefully we'll see the success. All right, final story. Bryce Harper cussed out Rob Manfred in a meeting. Now, you're probably wondering what the heck happened here. So Rob Manfred was in the Phillies clubhouse the other day, and they were talking about salary cap, which baseball is one of the very few that does not have a salary cap in its sport, and they're just allowed to like freely spend money. The only thing they have is a luxury tax. That's the only thing. And most owners, the Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Phillies, they're going to spend the money because they're big market. So they're willing to spend that money, and they'll pay. The luxury tax was put in years ago to give the smaller teams money to be competitive from the larger teams. So that's why they put it in. But this has been a massive issue. So the collective bargaining agreement is up on December 1st, 2026. And they got to figure out something. And for Rob to come into the clubhouse, to Bryce Harper, who's been a big name since he's been 19 years old, coming up out of the national system, and to basically say, well, we want to put a salary cap. Well, Bryce Harper turned to Rob Manfred, basically nose to nose, and said, get the F out of our clubhouse. Now, that I told you before we started, that's the first time I've heard a big name player tell Rob Manfred where to go in these very public CBA negotiations. And to be very clear, I think that we're heading for a lockout in Major League Baseball, because Major League Baseball and the owners want a salary cap, and the owners will the Players Association will never agree to it. So from a perspective of not necessarily a baseball fan, what do you see in this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does make sense, because why would the players want to agree with this? I mean, you're talking about a guy who, in Bryce Harper, who was this generational player who was one of these guys who hit free agency and got a big deal. And ironically, the team that he left, the Washington Nationals, won a championship without him. And then the team he goes to haven't had the success and hasn't won a championship. So it goes to show you, maybe not buying these players is always going to work out in the best interest for you. But like you said, there's no way that this will probably ever be implemented, because the high market teams like the Yankees and others and the Dodgers, they're never going to want a salary cap, because they're going to keep wanting to win the way that they're winning, because why change it? And the players are never going to change it, because that means less contracts and less money for them. So like you said, we're probably going to end up for a lockout. But I guess the biggest surprise for me is just, you don't see this in any sport where you got a player literally swearing and cussing out the commissioner. I mean, it's just something that you really don't see. So I guess that's a shock.
I'll give you one more and then we'll wrap it up. But quiet for the majority of the meeting, Bryce Harper, sitting in a chair, holding a bat, eventually grew frustrated and said, if MLB were to propose a cap and hold firm to it, players, quote, are not scared to lose 162 games. What does that tell you?
They're willing to miss out on an entire season so that they don't have to have this implemented. That's crazy.
I mean, do the guys realize how much money they make in Major League Baseball? I mean, now, Bryce Harper can get away with that a little more because he's made quite a bit of money already in his career. Say that to the minimum salary player in Major League Baseball who hasn't been around long enough, or the veteran who is trying to make money. Do you think they're thinking the same thing as Bryce Harper is? No.
Or for example, what about a young player like Paul Skeens, who is one of the brightest young players in the league, but he hasn't hit arbitration. He hasn't hit that big contract yet. And if he gets delayed another season, then that's another year where he loses out on and has to wait an additional year to get paid. So guys like him who haven't hit the market, like a Bryce Harper, may not be so inclined to agree with this.
I mean, first of all, Bryce Harper is very well known for being outspoken and a little too crass at times. As you can see, he keeps using the F word. And let's be real. You and I have heard all types of words and situations, but for him to talk that way to the commissioner of the sport, now, let me be very clear. Rob Manfred has not done a good job running Major League Baseball. We've had issues. We basically had a temporary lockout during COVID when that went down. We had I think it was a 60-game season during COVID, and then we had a 100-game season when we couldn't agree originally when the CBA was up. I mean, so we have a dopey commissioner in charge who has no idea what he's doing. He wants to put a salary cap in which the players are never going to agree to, because that's taking money away from them. Because you could talk about this more from an NFL perspective, where it's all about salary cap. And if you notice, guys get traded, guys get cut more instantly in a more dangerous sport than baseball will ever be. You would think that there should be more money guaranteed in the NFL than there should be in Major League Baseball, because you can, first of all, you can get injured in any professional sport you can participate in. So I'm not saying one is worse than the other, but there should be more guaranteed money in the NFL than there is in Major League Baseball.
100%. I mean, especially when we're just talking about earlier about the head injuries and the CTE that these players have to go through. Obviously any sport you can get hurt in, but football has the most likely chance of on any given play, you can get an injury that could completely derail your career. I mean, a quarterback could get a really bad shoulder injury, a linebacker or a running back could get a real devastating knee injury. And we've seen players who get one knee injury in running backs and are never able to be the same. So out of any sport, you think the guys who put the most on the line, they should be getting the most guaranteed money. And this is why you see 13, 15-year contracts in baseball, but you don't really see them in the NFL.
Yeah, this is going to be ugly for a while. Same thing, like we talked about a sport that's heading to lockout last week, the WNBA. I mean, think about this in comparison. We might have an MLB lockout and a WNBA lockout concurrently at the same time.
And you know what's funny is both those leagues got one thing in similar. Both of them got real crappy commissioners.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. But we'll see what happens. But that'll do it for this episode of Empty the Bench, episode 283. Make sure you like and subscribe to the ETB Network YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Help us out. We're about 25 subscribers away from 1,000. So please go over, like, and subscribe, youtube.com/ETB Network. It's on the screen if you're watching. Like I said, youtube.com/ETB Network. If you're on the audio side, go over and click subscribe. Listen wherever you get your podcasts, all audio platforms. The show is available. And this show is presented by Playback, like everything else on this network. Get ready. The NFL shows are coming back as well. Football forecast, Forever Power 5. It's Anthony's Christmas coming soon. So looking forward to that stuff. We're going to make some announcements very soon because we are going to be in August. So we're going to get into the NFL season. But otherwise, that'll do it for this episode. Great episode. Not as many topics, a lot of good ones. Anything left to say, Anthony, before we go?
Yeah, like you said, Christmas is coming for a lot of football fans out there. When this show premieres, we'll be having preseason. College football is also right around the corner. We got some great fights in UFC coming up as well. Obviously, baseball, we're going to begin towards the end of the season again, the playoff race. So that's going to be very exciting as well. So definitely make sure to stay tuned.
Yeah, all that and more. Just follow ETB Network across all social media platforms to stay on top of everything for the network. And that'll do it. So he's Anthony. I'm Nick. We will see you next week for episode 284 of Empty the Bench. Have a good week, everybody.